Hey everyone, just doing a quick sound check. Probably going to start in 2 minutes, give a couple people a little bit more time to jump in. Alex, can you hear me now? Perfect. Okay. I'll be back in 2 minutes, everyone. Looking forward to this. Okay, I'm back. Uh, Looks like we got a good group of people attending. There are a lot of people who are going to be piling in. They'll receive a recording if they can't make it. So welcome to the webinar. For those joining live, thanks for taking time out of your busy day. For those watching the recording, thanks for your interest. So we are in successfully evaluating and implementing document automation for solo and small law firms. That is a mouthful. I might want to work on that title. Quick introductions. My name is Andreas Becker. I am the Director of Sales at Lawyaw. Yes, that is a picture of me pre-COVID. I got like a ponytail now and a beard. My mom's kind of iffy on both. I'm the Director of Sales is my title. I grew up in a law office. I practiced for several years. And sorry, I've got someone in the chat. Let's just make sure. Oh, that's just Alex. Practiced for several years. The CEO of this company, Tucker Cottingham, is one of my study partners in law school. And the point here is, I've been in the trenches. I understand how challenging the profession is. I've experienced a lot of the inefficiencies of, practicing without document automation and other tools. I might have a couple hot takes because I'm genuinely pretty passionate about this stuff. I kind of worked on both sides of the aisle, but my only goal is to be objective and helpful and informative. This is not going to be a salesy demonstration or webinar. There is going to be some sort of demonstration just to kind of ground some of the concepts I'm talking about. But a little bit of background about Lawyaw, because some people don't know what it is. The canned answer is we're an automated document and workflow solution for attorneys. And the purpose of this slide, 5 years old, 1,100 plus law firms, 37 states in Canada, over 1.2 million documents drafted, 300,000 e-signatures. It's not to toot our own horns, just to give you a sense of our experience. We've been doing this for a while. I've talked to thousands of attorneys in my time here. So my opinions are guided, and the content is guided by the insights from those interactions. The agenda for today. Here's a quick snapshot. I'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. We've got around 45 minutes or less than that now. I'm going to try and be really judicious with your time. People have specific questions along the way they'd like to dive into. My colleague Alex Ruck, he just made an introduction in the chat section. Just drop it in there. If it's something particularly relevant and doesn't totally throw off my flow, then I'll call it out during the presentation. But otherwise, it'll just be addressed in the Q&A. There are also going to be a couple polls throughout that you can answer if so inclined in the poll section. I'll call those out as I post them. The answers are anonymized, so feel free to participate. I like to keep things interactive. We'll also send out an overview of the presentation with some resources that are referenced in this presentation, aside from the actual recording, and we'll do that like today or tomorrow. And just to get things started off, here's your first poll. I just like to get a sense of, our attendees. Published poll. Okay, this is, what is your primary practice area? Alex, let me know if that doesn't come up. Okay, let's jump right into it. So, at Lawyaw, our mantra is fall in love with the problem. And we've got this obligatory quote from someone smart telling us that we need to rethink the way that we do things. Marketing likes this slide. I think everyone likes this slide. I'm a little bit more of a wild card. So on the subject of hot takes, I'm going to drop in a quote that's just a little more blunt. And yeah, this might trigger some people. People love using this quote. We're led by lawyers that do not understand either technology or balance sheets. And you might be saying to yourself, that's not accurate. Who is Thomas Friedman? And that's taken out of context. That's not my practice. That's a gross misrepresentation of the direction the legal industry is moving. And then you get Lawyer Cat last week. And that was really funny, I gotta say. And bless his heart, everyone's had a Zoom mishap. But after I stopped laughing, I'm just kind of doing this head slap because, in 43 seconds-ish, this poor guy did his best to unravel 5 years of work that we of Lawyaw have been doing to change this narrative, and even more work that the legal industry and that all of you are probably doing, just even by attending this webinar, to distance yourself from this image that we've been pigeonholed into, as people who just aren't tech literate. So, okay, what's your point, Andreas? Point is that we're all to some extent the product of our environments. We're working in an industry that has been notoriously slow to adopt technology, and it's regarded as such. And, this isn't meant to instill fear. There isn't going to be an Uber for law. We learned that with Atrium. I'll include a link to Atrium if you're not familiar, but law, it's just too specialized. What we are going to have is certain practices getting ahead of the curve by using technology to differentiate themselves. And it was become, an increasingly saturated market. And opportunities abound, whether you just pass the bar and are hanging up your own shingle, or if you've been in practice for 40 years and want to create a system that will either provide something approaching like passive income, or help you realize a higher price if you want to sell your practice. I mean, there's a lot of interesting things going on in terms of how people are using tools to increase the value of that price. I'm happy to talk at length regarding, either end of the spectrum and anything in between, because I find it so interesting. But back to the problem. Okay. Bulk of law practices are simply not operating as efficiently as they need to in today's environment. You take COVID out of this completely. All COVID did with respect to the practice of law and technology has served as an accelerant. So the source of our problem is law firms not really having a business mindset, and that's not a fault. We're trained to be attorneys and to be risk averse and to serve our clients. And, some of us may have JD MBAs, but that's just not what was taught to us. We learned it along the way. The solution, and what I pound into people's head over and over, at least within the context of evaluating your firm and its processes, we have to think like business owners who happen to be attorneys and not the other way around. We don't implement technology for the sake of technology. We do it to be more efficient, both for our clients' sake and for the sustainability of our practices. Look at your kind of standard workflows. And if you haven't done this, do a whiteboard or just kind of draw it out for yourself. And think about those areas where you're watching dollars, or even more precious time, slipping away from each of your cases or matters or deals, and understand the impact lack of automation is currently having on your practice. The takeaway: find those places where you or your team add unique value to a case or matter, and try and automate everything else. Okay, so the value of document automation. Nice little pep talk. The good news is that there are lots of tools out there to help you become more efficient. And document automation is one of the lowest hanging of those fruits, if you will. And if you're in attendance or watching, recording this webinar, several of these bullets should resonate with you. And this will be our second poll. One moment, publish poll, great. So we'll dig in a little bit here. Save time, obviously. You shouldn't be rewriting the same thing over and over again. You don't have time. If you do have time, that should be spent elsewhere, building your book of business, working on the really complex matters, managing the business itself. Everyone jumps to the most complex, with respect to document automation, everyone jumps to the most complex set of documents or their most hated ones and often ignore all the correspondence and the little documents that really eat up their day. That's what killed me. I mean, yes, all the pleadings and the mediation statements and all of that, yeah, they were complex, but it's the little correspondence that just interrupted me, but it needed to go out. Start to take account of that, like those little interruptions where you need to get something out, but you've got to go in and check for an address, and do a save as, and a find and replace all. Think about that and then multiply that little interruption across the length of a typical client life cycle. That will start to give you more of a sense, not of just about automating a flat fee project or something, but like all the little stuff that goes along that gets you to that point where you are drafting, an uncontested divorce package or an estate plan or, a closing package, something like that. The second thing, avoid errors. This is the benefit that usually elicits the most visceral reaction. Everyone on this webinar, including myself, I don't care who's on this webinar, we've all made, a mistake in drafting because we were rushing. I mean, if you didn't, hats off to you, but I can't imagine anyone who hasn't accidentally sent something out with an error of some sort. Save as, find and replace all, copy and paste. That was my system when I practiced. It was a system just for lack of better processes. And there were 2 spaces between a first and last name. I do a find and replace all, doesn't catch it. I'm in a rush and someone else's name is in a document and it's embarrassing. Not only is it embarrassing, I was over at my parents' literally on Monday. My mom asked me to look at her appraisal for a property of an estate that she's administering. And she said, so this calls for a discount if the property and the adjacent lot are sold together. Does that make sense to you? And I said, did you ask for that? She said, no. And I said, that person who created that document, they did a find and replace all. And for that kind of case where there's an adjacent lot and they didn't take out that provision. That's exactly what happened. Now I don't know. A real estate attorney can jump in here, but this stuff happened, like it literally just happened, and it looks unprofessional. Not only that, there's some consequence to that. We're gonna have a buyer potentially if that's in there that expects some sort of discount. So you've got to be careful about that. Empowering your team, that's the one that gets swept under the rug or just isn't really thought about, but that's the one I'm most excited about because we've been doing a lot of user interviews and for our accounts with teams, and the common thread that we're not digging for, but which keeps coming up is that it has improved team morale. Like that's the phrase. And giving your staff tools to help them be more efficient has this outsized effect, both on productivity because people feel like their time is being valued and morale. And if you have a team, you need to equip them with the tools of today if you expect your practice to compete with the practices of today. Improving client experience, I mean, it's obvious. You want to speed turnaround times, lower costs, generate referrals, reduce billing disputes, not end up on Yelp or Ava with a bad review. And then increasing profitability. This is what it all comes down to, regardless of whether your goal is just to spend more time practicing law or spend more time with the family or scale the practice. Profitability is the ultimate measure of efficiency. And if we do, those top 4 things, or even any single one of them, undoubtedly you're going to increase profitability. And so let's see, what's your primary goal here? Okay. And what I want to get to with people, I just love this guy. He's a solo. I went through, I usually do like a 30 or 45 minute like strategy session onboarding call after someone signs up. He already got into our resources. We needed like 15 minutes. And he said, I got it. And this is the thing that we've done with so many different practices. And that's what I want to get to. So, okay, we're pumped up, we're motivated. Document automation is going to help solve all of our problems. And then screeching halt. Look at this big old list of technologies that also claim that they're going to do the same thing for me. They're going to help transform my practice. Yes, legal tech, it's a crowded field right now. growing more crowded by the day. It's a good thing. We're all pushing each other. And document automation happens to be one of the most impactful investments you can make because it positions itself firmly at essentially the most critical point of the client lifecycle, which is your output. Whether you run a flat fee practice where ROI is just very clear based on the speed you can turn around, again, the estate plans or the incorporation packages or the uncontested divorces, or if you run a litigation practice where speed and accuracy allow you to be more strategic in your handling of the case, getting discovery out quicker, drafting demand letters more rapidly, you can get a better outcome and keep your costs down. I mean, I had to cut costs all the time, even though I was drafting things, just because I could have done it quicker. And, we all bill, if you're on hourly, we all bill hourly. Very rarely do you collect all of that unless you're working at a big firm, and even then. So what you're looking at is like this stripped down kind of linear path along the client lifecycle, but it's what's really important. And document automation right here, it informs or impacts all of these points. So third pull, and something to think about as I go through. Where do things most commonly break down? Prospective client intake, that's making it easier for clients to engage and retain you. Onboarding, obtaining all the additional information necessary to expedite the handling of the case or matter once someone's retained you. Document automation informs those two components because it gives you a framework to understand what information needs to be collected and in what format and in what stage of the case. You always want to meet clients where they are. I see people do these big intakes and they wonder why it's not getting filled out. And you want to kind of piece that out. And this document automation as a framework, or just visualizing this, even if you don't use automation, that is going to help you, figure out along the stage of the case when you need to be asking for information. Obviously, the documents are important. That's your actual work product, and you can talk about any legal tech solution. But just think about your output. That's what the client is seeing, and or the courts are seeing, and opposing counsel. That's your brand, your reputation. You really can't overinvest in ensuring a professional, predictable, clean work product. And then delivery is interesting just because, whether it's obtaining e-signatures or delivering the work product in easy to understand manner. When I talk about that, the firms that I see leading the way are the ones that don't just deliver the contract that could be really big and just expect the client to understand it, but also automate some sort of a summary or overview that explains the contract in layman terms, using the exact same data inputs that are in the contract itself, but just kind of, again, meeting the client where they are. So let's talk about features that matter. This is crucial in terms of evaluating softwares. What's out there and what should you be looking for? Fourth pull. So, different practices have different needs depending on the practice areas, the size, the complexity or sophistication of their representation. A couple things to think about. It's more than a couple, but this is not comprehensive, but these are the key things. Ease of use is critical. Most people on this call, they've probably heard of hot docs. They've been the incumbent for 20 plus years in terms of document automation. Extremely powerful, huge barrier to entry, and not particularly flexible just because it's an older system. Reliable, but from a cost perspective and general ease of use, a lot of people I tried hot docs when I was practicing. I just didn't have time to learn it because you're literally having to learn how to code. I mean, this is a screenshot of some template that I've seen, and yes, that's particularly complex, really powerful, but I mean, it's overkill for a lot of the practices that I see. More modern tools, employ no-code interfaces, which allow non-engineers, attorneys, staff, whatever, to more easily set up their documents with similar functionality. Flexibility, key question. Whether are you pumping out boilerplate templates quickly? Are you new to the practice area? Or have you been doing this for a while and you want to be setting up your own proprietary customized documents? If it's the former, there are practice area specific tools out there that can expedite that process. Maybe they're really good as kind of the CYA. you go to Westlaw, they've got tons of just canned templates. You can't do much with them, but they're legally binding. Different practice areas in different states have cottage industries that will automate certain types of documents. If you've been doing this for a while and it's the latter, you want your own proprietary documents, you need to find a flexible solution that really allows you to do that. And kind of digging down into the latter there are a couple features that you want to keep an eye out on. Template sets, being able to generate not just one document at a time, but multiple sets of documents that allow you to kind of break your practice down, like I said, by workflows. Conditional logic, there's various types of functionality in terms of, multiple choice, and, maybe that's not enough. You need something that does if then, or if exists, you need to do combinations, and you really want to programmatically have as close to a finished document as possible when you generate it. Data reusage, there are a lot of tools out there that they're good document automation systems, but only for a discrete project, and they don't have this persistence. So you're having to re-enter data for each new project. So you want to think about data reusage or integrations in terms of where it can pull information from. And something like built-in e-sign and questionnaires, we want to be thinking about it, for anyone who plays an instrument here, economy of motion. We want to try and have as much stuff living in one kind of hub as possible. Legal specific functionality. There's concept of horizontal versus vertical solutions. So like you think about CRM Salesforce or Dubsado, which is becoming really popular. I've started hearing a lot more about Dubsado. Those are more horizontal solutions that can accommodate, tons of different businesses, but, they're not really purpose built for any single one. From a practice management software standpoint, like Clio or Practice Panther or MyCase or what have you. Those are vertical solutions built specifically for law firms and include, features tailored to a law firm's needs. So the same thing with document automation. There are tools out there that just, kind of like a glorified mail merge that aren't really legal specific, but may work for your particular use case. If you have more complex documents or specific needs, you should probably be looking at something that is legal specific. And then depth of onboarding support. Half of document automation is using a tool that offers the features you need. The other half is working with a team that's invested in your immediate and ongoing success and has built out the resources and training plans to ensure that. So I know that was a lot. I'm going to get into a demonstration real quick, just to kind of ground some of the concepts that we've talked about. And I don't see any questions, so that's good. Hopefully I'm doing an okay job. I'm going to turn this off and I'm going to share my screen. And Alex, give me a little holler or a Slack message when you can see my screen. We good, Alex? Oh yeah, no, it looks like we're good. Okay, so as an example, here, this is the Lawyaw platform. And it's a cloud-based tool. This is where I can come in and store all the different templates that I use, in my practice, whether I'm just focused on a specific practice area or I do a range of different things. And we kind of really want to think about, this tool not just as a one-off kind of tool, but like a hub for all of your document generation. And a lot of people, ask, okay, so how did this document even get in here? Where did this come from? Good question. So the other component of pretty much any document automation tool, because it's not going to be hosted natively, is you're going to have either a Microsoft Word add-in that can help you kind of easily enter these fields, or you might be using another tool that requires that you copy and paste pieces of code in. So this document right here, this is a preview of the template that I've set up. And we're just this is what I started with. And you'll see that this is Art Vanderlei. Imagine that this is any client in here. You just basically take a document that you think would make for a good template that you would like to reuse for multiple matters or multiple clients. And then Lawyaw just has a Microsoft Word add-in, takes 30 seconds to download. And when I save this template into the system, there's a save button when I initially open it up. I can either start from scratch or I can pull in fields from an existing template. I'm just going to say start from scratch. And then just as an example of how I would set this up, like, okay, so Art Vandelay is the principal. I'm gonna create a roll card, principal. We'll start to remember your cards. We're not gonna get too deep into this, but just to give you a sense of what I'm talking about when I say no code. You're not typing in any syntax. I can affect, the font of this particular field. I get a count. I can do bulk inserts. I can do conditions, all sorts of things. But now I've created this field in here. And that's what you're seeing here. So this is like where all of my templates lie. What we want to get to, getting to template sets, is, ultimately we want to break your practice down into mini workflows. And that means, document automation is a means to an end. Let's use it as an organizational tool. I don't want to do, just the fee agreement. I want to do these 3 documents at the same time. I don't want to do just the power of attorney. I want to do these 3 documents at the same time. And we're always, whenever we're generating either a template set or a single template, we're always tying it to a matter. And this is talking about data persistency. We kind of have 2 different areas where we're tying things to. One is the matter itself, and the other are contacts. And you can dig into either of the matters or the contacts and see what information has been entered to date. It's not meant to take the place of the practice management software, but you get that visibility. There are a lot of people who don't have a practice management software, and this is meant to work as a standalone. So, as a quick example, let's say that I want to do that POI, that power of attorney. I can preview the template, or I can just say draft new document immediately. You'll notice here that I've got client full name and I got principal full name, and they're the same person. I'm going to draft new document. I'm going to choose the estate of Art Vandelay. And when I click next, if this was the first time I was drafting anything in the matter, I could create a new matter. Where these are pulled in from Clio, well, we're going to open up some other integrations. When I click next, you're going to see on here, this is a representation of the different categories of information or cards that I've set up in this template. And so you see these cards that I've created. I had started to do that in this document right here. And all we're doing, when I replaced Art Vandelay, I wasn't pulling in information. I'm just using this, I'm just creating a template. And you'll see here, this is the fully built out template. I've got conditions in here and different categories under each of these cards. Those are a representation, or this is a representation of what I had input into that template. And information automatically came in because I had previously entered in the matter. If this was a new matter, I hadn't entered information in yet, I'd be entering it in for the first time, and it would progressively save back to the matter. So as you progress through your case and do more documents, you're always using updated information and adding to information saved to that matter. Something that's helpful for, in a variety of use cases is, going off of a contact basis. So I create basically roles of all of the different people in a case, for, let's say, for a dissolution. Sometimes I'm representing the petitioner. Sometimes I'm representing the respondent. Sometimes they're the husband. Sometimes they're the wife. That information is asked for in different capacities sometimes, as opposed to having to put in what a lot of us do, client full name, all the way through a document. I just create roles and then pull the appropriate person into that role and have all their information automatically pulled. We've got a couple different types of fields. Think about the types of fields you need and the formatting of the information. And we can do short text, long text, dates. I've got a condition here. So if I leave this blank, it will say it's effective immediately, as opposed to, this is it immediate or springing power of attorney. I can save different, alternative clauses. You saw up here, you can do something simple like just personal pronouns, which are so annoying to change because you do a he or she, and you look for he, and it's going to pick up any instance of he. It's just not very easy to use. This is an example of something more complex where, I can have different clauses pop in depending on, the background of the case or the wishes of my client. I can make edits here, edited text, without affecting the underlying template, which is really big. You don't have like rogue templates floating around. You don't have someone who accidentally entered something in your master template that you're not aware of. And then I can choose to, I'm not going to get too far into the coding, but basically I can, programmatically remove or include certain provisions. And when I generate the Word document, I get this readout of what the document looks like before I download it. So I can still go in and make edits if I need to. And then I can, from here have two options for something like a representation agreement or something that is just good to go and ready to sign. I can remove the highlights and send out for e-sign or sign myself. If it's something that I want to do some additional work on, that's fine. If we can get you 90% of the way there, that's still a win. I just click download. All of that information that I had input in, pops in automatically. And then this is what my final output would be. And I like having the highlights in here, especially if someone's like drafting for me or if I'm trying to delegate more work. I want to be able to see what changed. And then I can go in and make whatever edits that I'd like, get rid of the highlights after the fact. This is just a fully editable Microsoft Word document at this point. You save it wherever you want to save it. So hopefully that was helpful. What people really want to do, again, is create these different workflows. So no, I don't want to do just that. I want to do my entire estate planning package. And I use estate plan just because it's common, family law, tons of transactional use cases, obviously litigation, but now I'm doing the entire estate plan. Same process, going to the state of art Vandalay. You're just going to see more categories of information here and more instances. So now the client's name appears 5 times. This is what I'm talking about. Art Vandalay, he's the client. He's also the testator. These are his kids. He's also the executor. I'm the backup executor. Maybe one of the kids is the backup executor. I can pull them in. So it gives you a ton of flexibility working off of this contact basis. And then when I click generate Word document, I'm doing 3 documents at a time. You can do 10 documents at a time if it's like a real estate closing package, or you want to do, incorporation packages or LLC formations. But what we're really trying to get to, there's some work to be done to get to this point. But once you do, it's kind of one of those instances where I told my dad forever, you got to get 2 screens. So why would I have 2 screens? So well, you could have email up. Don't you have to look at one screen and type into another? And no, finally did it. And we're just stuck in our habits. That's what we do. But if we can get you to this payoff, it's going to save you so much time and allow you to do, just give you flexibility in your practice. So hopefully that was helpful. I'm happy to provide some additional context in the follow-up emails, but I'm going to get back to just some best practices and keep things open. A little time for the question and answer. So let's choose this media. So we're back here. Features that matter. Great. That was the hot docs. Okay, implementation best practices. First, and I know this seems like obvious, but it's so important. Paint a clear picture of the before and after. Any tool that you bring up, I don't care if it's $20 a month. It's an investment. So understand why you're doing this. Paint a picture of the before and after, and understand, like we do, fall in love with the problem. Figure out what you're trying to solve for. Is it something small, and you just need a little help with, we've got to be a little bit more efficient with our billing, or there's this one document that's been giving us a lot of problems. There are plenty of just discrete use cases where it will even merit a use of even a complex document automation tool, even if it's just a small piece of your practice. And then, sorry, I was just looking. Mara, I'll have Alex follow up with you. Thank you for attending. Assess the scope of the change, implementation timeline. Think about, where do you want to be in 3 months? Where do you need to be in 3 months? I try and take into account historically what the problem is, but also are you seeing an increase, especially with the pandemic, certain practice areas are just blowing up. Some people are changing their practices, moving into more new practice areas. What's the need? What's motivating this? And obviously, how are we measuring the benefits or the ROI? We want to be metric driven. I know it sounds like such lame talk. Business owners, we're business owners. We want to make money or give ourselves flexibility and be data driven. It's super important. In terms of, resources and bandwidth, like be honest with yourself. Adopting a new technology can be imposing. You don't have to do everything. Like you're running the business. What Tucker, when it was just like 5 of us, I can't believe it was only 5 of us like 2 years ago. He'd say like his job was to fall in love with a problem, get really good at like trying to solve it, and then delegate to someone. So you can get really good at this stuff, but like, I mean, be honest with yourself. If you're a solo, leverage external resources, or, I have plenty of people who hire their, their son, you know, or their daughter, or or some admin just to do some of the heavy lifting, because it's not that hard. If you got a team, then I really want to focus on internal communications and ownership. 3-person firm example, but think about this however you'd like. I want to keep the principle strategic, high level. Your time is very valuable. Yes, I'll let you into if you want to get into the weeds, we can get into the weeds. I know you want to understand things, but understand your time is valuable. I want an admin or secretary at that tactical level. They're really in the weeds. I'm working a lot with them on just, making sure they're using the tool correctly. And then, when I'm not there or the team isn't there, and very specific to the practice, there's a question about certain legalese or styling or what have you. That admin or secretary can escalate something to the associate or senior paralegal that's sitting in the middle, who hopefully can answer that question. If they can't, then they escalate to the principal or what have you. But I see too often that people just give someone a software and give them a couple videos and say, hey, go with it. And sometimes that's what people want. They just want to start experimenting, but don't underestimate the value of just doing some planning and understanding, what roles your team's going to play. Set a schedule and start small. Again, depending on your end goals, caseload, be honest, talk with it, and experiment with a bunch of different providers. See who like resonates with you. See if you're getting a good feel, not just about the tool itself, but like the team. You want to have this manageable plan of attack, incremental landmarks to ensure adoption. And this employment law example, like I said, I like to work linearly. Everyone wants to jump to discovery because everyone hates it. But when someone says that to me, I say, well, when's the next time you're doing that? It's going to be a while. Okay. Why don't we start with a couple things just to prime the pump and kind of lay a foundation? Engagement letter, initial letters of representation. Employment law has been so busy lately. So that's kind of the first step, and like maybe some client homework. Second, right to sue letter, the EEOC, and the accompanying, after that, the demand letter that you're going to be sending out. Okay, we've done that. And then I talked to the team. Do most of these settle? Does the demand letter usually work? Or no, we're very often going to trial. Okay, so let's do the complaint and associated pleadings and motions next. But it just makes sense to set these documents up. You can look at them and see what the data inputs are going to be. But in terms of setting them up, use the things that you're going to use most immediately to get really comfortable with the system. And then discovery, and then judgment and orders. I'm not militant. People can use the tool as they want. But I've seen so many people. I've seen people have success who just completely, they've done automation before, or even haven't, and they just, they figured it out. But more often than not, I think thinking along that linear timeline really, really helps. And then I really like this. This is from a company called WalkMe. They do like SaaS or like software implementation and training. And this is like the learning curve, how humans learn, tons of data behind this. And what we want to do is, to use a term of art, flatten the curve, but in the opposite way. We want to stay up, well, not the opposite way, but that learning curve, the forgetting curve, that's actually going to happen, but I want to expedite between, that retraining support. I don't want to have to do that. And we've worked really hard to put in systems so that people aren't going through that stage, but keeping mindful of, the caseloads and the bandwidth and light touch, but, digestible pieces. That's why it's so important to kind of break your practice down and have those measurable landmarks. And then, quality train. I know I'm just going into it, but like I said, half is building a really helpful tool. Half is just, understanding your team. If this is a goal for your team, understand who's going to be the influential user, who's got a different type of learning style. Let's make sure everything's documented so that people are kind of working off the same playbook. Coordinate individual sessions if necessary, make those videos available, and focus on the most critical features, not necessarily for yourself, but what you think your team either may feel foreign or what your specific goals are for the team. Like, what is that document packet that is really holding us up? And then focus on the features that are going to facilitate the drafting of that set. And then common mistakes. I mean, this is going to be a recitation. It's almost the flip of the best practices, but yeah, cultural resistance. Survey, due to the pandemic, rates of adoption years ahead, just because people have been concentrating so much on this. This no code, and like people understand that people in other industries don't have time to learn this stuff. They have to make it easy. So adoption is way ahead, both from a technical standpoint and just from like an emotional connectivity, understanding teams and priorities and that sort of thing. But, you kind of look at this be prepared for some cultural resistance, make this easy and collaborative process for your team. If it's, if you've got a team, if it's solo, then obviously, hopefully you've already adopted the right mindset. Not measuring things is, a critical misstep. You're investing time. It's not the money. I mean, every software costs some money, so I understand what it's like to run a small practice. It's very stressful, and there are a lot of costs. But the cost of a lot of these automation tools, it's not like a monthly charge or something like that. It's your time. It's the time invested. So we need to have these clear goals and metrics and KPIs that we're constantly kind of not recording like madmen, but we want a vision of like, how much time did I save? Was this investment worth it? Am I in the black or the red? Inconsistent rollout and adoption messaging. Again, going back to just, we want some consistency so we can start small. It's going to catch on. That first document, people say, oh, this is pretty cool. The second document is when things usually click. Because I know I was just showing you a bunch of documents that you're having to imagine your own documents in. It's that second document where the information pops in automatically and they think, okay. And then that third document, if we put it in a template set, then they're like, got it. So that's it. I got I'm done. I hope that was helpful. I'm gonna stick around for Q&A. I appreciate everyone who participated in the polls. I hope I wasn't like waxing poetic too much, but like I care about this stuff. I'm happy to meet with, I'd welcome the opportunity to speak with anyone after this, or you'll be getting an email follow-up with the recording. I'll do a separate email follow-up with some additional resources, but hopefully it's good. And let me know if you got any feedback. Let me know, Andreas, stop talking so much and cut your hair or whatever. But yeah, thank you everyone again. Be safe out there, especially if you're in Texas right now, the snow. And I'm just gonna stay on. I'm gonna turn off my camera, but I'm gonna stay on if anyone wants to ask any follow-up questions, and Alex will be here for a little while too. Thank you so much. And yes, Elise, everyone likes the Art Vandelay reference. It's a good one. Thank you, everyone. Like I said, I'll stay on for a little bit.